The ballroom lights shimmered like a golden desert at sunset. Crystal glasses chimed. A soft piano note hung in the air, and then silence. You could feel the silence, like the whole room forgot to breathe. A Saudi billionaire in a cream thobe and sapphire cufflinks lifted a single black card between his fingers. "Solve this problem and I'll give you $190 million, he said, smiling without warmth. The crowd murmured. Cameras rose. A few nervous laughs fluttered and died. Emma, the waitress with a tray balanced on her palm, froze. She wasn't dressed for attention. Black shoes, crisp apron, a loose strand of hair tucked behind her ear. She looked at him, then at the card. The card looked back like a dare. "Sir, I'm working," she whispered. "Beautiful," he replied. "Work while you solve it." His eyes flicked to her manager. "Robert, let her try. Entertainment for the night." Robert's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside. The billionaire's inner circle watched. Evelyn, the polished PR director with calculating eyes. John, the bodyguard who scanned the room like a hawk. And Michael, a young intern doing his best to be invisible. At the piano, Sophia stilled her hands, letting a final note fade until it was just air. Emma set her tray down. The scent of cardamom tea, expensive cologne, and polished wood drifted around her. She took the card. One problem, one room full of strangers, one man who believed money could bend anyone's spine. Emma looked calm, but her hands trembled, only a little. "And if I solve it," she said, steady now, "the money doesn't go to me. It goes to the workers you plan to cut next month. And a children's hospital in Jeddah." A ripple. Eyebrows lifted. The billionaire's smile thinned. "So brave. So sure." "Not sure," Emma said softly. "Just done being small." The billionaire tapped his watch. 10 minutes. Then louder, to the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, watch how the world works. What would you do if someone with everything dared you to prove you were worth anything? Would you look down or look back? Would you play by his rules or change the game?" Silence. The crowd leaned in. Cameras blinked red. The clock began to tick. And Emma breathed in. And began. The black card felt heavier than paper should. On it, a problem, handwritten in neat blue ink. Save $190 million across 3 divisions without firing a single worker. You may ask for any publicly available data in this room. You have 10 minutes. Emma blinked. The billionaire's name whispered from one table to another like a rumor. Khalid Al-Harbi. Oil, shipping, retail tech, luxury hotels, this very ballroom. He had built empires from sand and steel. He thought this was a show. He thought a waitress would stutter, blush, crumble. Emma didn't. She scanned the room. 3 screens cycling, branding reels. A glossy annual report on every table. A trophy case on the far wall with engraved routes of Al-Harbi shipping, Yanbu, Jeddah, Port Said, Piraeus. A centerpiece made of desert roses encircling a silver hourglass. The sand was already falling. "Robert," she said quietly to her manager, "may I borrow the annual report?" He hesitated. Evelyn leaned in, voice like perfume. "Let the girl play, Robert. We're all curious." Emma opened the report. Paper whispered. Her eyes moved fast. Faster than anyone expected. Fuel costs, port fees, idle time. She'd spent nights in a tiny studio watching operations videos for fun. A leftover habit from a college degree she never got to finish. She didn't have power, but she knew patterns. Waste had a smell. It leaked through numbers the way diesel leaks through wood. She flipped to a page with color-coded lanes. A photograph of 2 tankers under a hot sun. A caption bragging about reliability over speed. "Michael," Emma called softly to the intern. "There's a QR code here. Will you scan it and cast the route map to screen B? Please." Michael glanced at John, then at Khalid. A nod. The map filled the second screen. Lines like veins over blue water. Emma pointed. "Look at this loop between Jeddah and Piraeus. Ships return empty 2 out of 5 cycles. No backhauls. That's fuel burned for air waste." Evelyn crossed her arms. Backhauls require contracts, she said. Not magic. Emma met her gaze. And contracts require noticing that Athens textiles are importing from Dubai while your ships sail back light past them. You're missing a lane consolidation with 2 regional partners. She looked at Khalid. How long have you had that blind spot? A pause. Eyes, screens, breath. Everything seemed to wait. 7 minutes, Khalid said, tapping the hourglass. Impress me. Emma nodded, calm now. She traced the map with a finger. I'll need your port idle logs and the last quarter's bunker prices by lane. Public if you've filed them. She turned to the room. And a marker. Sophia, at the piano, handed her a black marker like handing over a blade before a duel. Emma drew a tight, clean triangle. Jeddah Piraeus Port said, Jeddah, annotating it with dwell times. You're treating these as separate trips. Merge them. Create a cycling milk run with scheduled backhauls and swap to smaller, more frequent vessels for the return legs. You cut idle by 14%, fuel by 9 to 11% on those lanes alone. Evelyn scoffed. That barely scratches $190 million. Emma didn't flinch. This is chapter 1. She set the marker down and the room went still. If this is chapter 1, what on earth is chapter 2? The air conditioning hummed. Ice knocked softly inside highball glasses. Somewhere outside, a siren flickered and faded. Emma's heartbeat matched the hourglass grain by grain. She spoke without rushing. Division 2, she said. Retail tech. Your last page boasts next-day delivery in 3 cities. She flipped the report. But your app reviews. She looked up. Anyone here have the Al Harbi Mart app? Hands rose. Phones glowed. Emma didn't need to touch them. Open your last 2 delivery notifications, she said. Check the time between out for delivery and delivered. Guests murmured. Evelyn arched a brow. Crowdsourced audits? Cute. Emma smiled just a little. Data is wherever people feel pain. A woman at table 4 frowned at her screen. Mine says 3 hours, she whispered to her friend. But the driver was at my door in 40 minutes. There, Emma said, gentle. Clock drift between driver app and customer app. You're paying for phantom wait times in SLA penalties and padding staff to cover a problem that doesn't need people, it needs sync. Evelyn's lips thinned. How much does clock drift cost us? According to the Waitress. Emma didn't blink. If you're paying drivers by the minute, and 18% of orders show a 2-hour discrepancy weekly in those 3 cities. Khalid leaned forward. 18. Emma nodded at Michael. Your interns read Reddit, right? Look at the public threads. People screenshot everything when they're mad. They average labeled the drift for you. Michael, flushing, typed fast. On screen C, a fan-made spreadsheet appeared, thousands of timestamps and comments. The room gasped. Emma continued, voice steady. You could compress that variance with server-side time, eliminate duplicate pings, and redesign batching windows from 6 minutes to 4 in dense zones. That drops ghost minutes by at least 40% in a week. Then you reduce SLA penalties, millions. And you redeploy riders intelligently instead of hiring more. Evelyn tried to smile. It didn't reach her eyes. Even if that works, we're far from 190. Emma's hand hovered over the report. We're not done. She turned a page. On it, a photo of shiny delivery robots rolling past a fountain. Pilot program? She asked. Khalid's smile returned. You noticed. Everyone noticed, Emma said softly. They're adorable, and expensive, and stuck behind a gate that a human could open in 2 seconds. Your pilot team never modeled human courtesy delays. So the machine waits, and your promise breaks. A laugh cut the air sharp. John, the bodyguard. She's not wrong. Emma nodded. Trade half the robots for assisted pickup lockers at busy residential towers. Partner with concierges. Give them a cut per pickup. You eliminate half of failed delivery returns. Reduce rerouting. People like people. She looked at Khalid. Turns out, speed isn't always a machine. He stared at her. The room leaned closer. How much time? Emma asked. For minutes, he said. Emma set the report down. Division 3 hotels. This one's easy. She turned to Robert. How much food from plated service is discarded, on average? Robert swallowed. Too much. Emma looked at the billionaire. You book reliability over speed at sea, and opulence over need on land. Your plates are art, and a third of them die in the trash. An uncomfortable rustle moved through silk and linen. You're not a villain, Emma said, quietly. But your systems are. Silence. Create a just-in-time micromenu for plated courses. Let guests pre-select entrees by RSVP. Tweak on arrival. You'll slash overproduction 28 to 35% for events larger than 200. Partner kitchens with local shelters for legal same-night distribution. The waste becomes meals. The loss becomes goodwill. And yes, money. Khalid's eyes were unreadable. Numbers, he said. Emma exhaled. Across these 3 divisions, shipping backhauls and smaller return vessels, retail time sync and batching windows with mixed last mile, hotel micromenus with waste diversion, you can conservatively clear 192 million net in 12 months with no layoffs. Maybe more. Every breath in the room waited for the next one. But why did the billionaire look afraid? Emma felt that fear before she saw it. It wasn't anger. Anger was loud. This was the quiet kind that slides under doors. Khalid wasn't afraid of losing money. He was afraid of losing the story where he won because he was cruel. He tapped the hourglass. 1 minute left. Emma set her marker down. That's enough. Is it? Evelyn's voice cut like glass. Because your crowd audit and napkin math might be charming in a Netflix special. But we have compliance, unions, real contracts. Emma nodded. And a board that reads trend lines, she said gently. They'll want to know why last quarter spikes in bunker costs are misaligned with your public hedging schedule. A flicker crossed Evelyn's face. So brief it could have been a blink. Emma turned to Michael, the intern. You posted an investor reel 2 months ago. Behind you on the whiteboard, a partial hedge schedule reflected off the glass. It doesn't match this report's timing. She gestured to the screen. Your hedges went on late. A ripple of whispers. Cameras tightened. Khalid's jaw worked. Explain. Emma's voice stayed soft. Someone in your circle smoothed that mismatch in the report and padded the delta under operational resilience. It isn't fraud, not yet. But it is a story that hides risk. And it's why you threw a Waitress a circus challenge tonight. You needed the room looking at me, not at you. Silence. John shifted his weight. Evelyn stared at Emma like she could erase her with a thought. Robert looked at his shoes. Emma didn't blink. Let me guess. Your board meets tomorrow. And you wanted a clip that says, we're bold. We dangle impossible bets. We're untouchable. Khalid's silence said everything. Here's the thing, Emma added, voice barely above a whisper. You don't need to be untouchable. You need to be teachable. Sophia's fingers brushed the keys. 1 note, like a heartbeat. Emma lifted the black card. I solved your problem. Without humiliating anyone. Without firing anyone. You promised 190 million to workers and a hospital. Evelyn recovered fast. Verbal theatrics aren't contracts. Emma nodded. Calm. Then put it in writing. She slid a folded paper across the table. A single-page pledge she'd scribbled on the back of an order sheet. Michael's eyes widened. John's mouth twitched. Amused, maybe impressed. Khalid stared at the pledge. You expect me to sign now? Not expect, Emma said. Invite. She smiled, small and human. And I'll give you something in return. He leaned in despite himself. What? Emma took a breath, and the room tilted toward her. What could a waitress possibly have that a billionaire wants? Emma placed a small, battered notebook on the linen cloth. The cover was the color of rain. The elastic band had snapped years ago. My father's, she said, voice steady. He drove a refrigerated truck until the recession took his route. He kept notes, fuel risks, loading hacks, time-loss traps. The things no manager sees because no manager rides the 3 a.m. highways with coffee gone cold. She opened to a page covered in cramped handwriting. Arrows, circles. For words underlined twice. People see what they feel. Emma pushed the notebook halfway across the table. Not all the way. This isn't worth money, she said. It's worth attention. If you sign the pledge, I'll spend 6 months. Not as an employee, but as a shadow in your system, documenting blind spots from shop floor to boardroom. Then I'll walk away. You can keep the notes. You can keep the credit. But the pledge stands. The room exhaled like a single creature. Evelyn tried to scoff and couldn't quite. John's eyes softened, just a fraction. Michael looked like someone had just told him magic is real. Khaled's knuckles whitened. His gaze flicked to the hourglass, where the last grains gathered. Then he looked at Emma's hands. Steady now, empty, honest. Why should I trust you? He asked. Emma glanced around at the waitstaff at the room's edges. Because we're the only ones who see everyone, she said. We pour the wine for the winners and mop the tears for the ones who don't get invited back. We notice the waste. We notice the kindness. We notice when men in suits confuse fear with respect. Silence. She softened. Sign it. People will say you were pressured. They'll say you blinked. Let them. The children's ward won't care why the MRI machines arrive. The bakery workers won't care why the pink slips vanish. They'll be too busy working. And living. A vein in Khaled's temple pulsed. He reached for the pen. Stopped. Looked at Evelyn. Her smile was brittle. Sir, we should. Quiet, he said. He signed. The sound of ink on paper was louder than applause. The room erupted anyway. Cameras flashed. Glasses rang like bells. Robert let out a breath he'd been holding since the first act of his life. Sophia's hands landed on the keys, and the piano found a melody that felt like hope. Evelyn leaned in, hissed low enough for only a few to hear. This will make you a saint today and a target tomorrow. Khaled didn't look at her. Then we'll be a saint today, he said, and his eyes, when they lifted to Emma, had lost some steel and found a sky. Tomorrow will be better. Emma nodded. Tomorrow starts now. But when morning came, not everyone wanted better. The boardroom the next day was cold enough to bite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a pale sun dragging light across Riyadh's towers. Coffee steaming in cups that no one touched. Evelyn clicked a remote. Slides pulsed on the wall, markets, margins, maps. Her voice was clean and sharp. We're aligned on optics. The pledge is a signal. We frame it as strategic philanthropy. John stood at the back, impassive. Michael sat at the edge of the table, pen poised, trying not to look terrified. Emma wasn't supposed to be there. She stood near the window anyway, a shadow in the glass, exactly as she'd promised. Khaled spoke. His voice had changed, less performance, more weight. Before we talk optics, talk fixes. Emma stepped forward. She pinched the remote, brought up a simple slide she'd made at dawn. 3 moves, 30 days. Backhaul partnerships. Pre-signed MOUs with 2 textile importers mapped to shipping cycles. Dynamic right-sizing on return legs. Time sync and batching. Server authoritative timestamps. 4-minute urban batching windows. Concierge locker pilots at 20 towers. Micromenu and recovery. RSVP trace. On-arrival tweaks. Legal pipeline to food banks. Report waste weekly, publicly. She didn't flood them with numbers. She gave them the road. A man with silver hair, board chair, by the ring, and the way he didn't need to ask permission, leaned back. And your layoffs forecast? No layoffs, Emma said. We repurpose. Training. Transfers. You've got a safety river, and you're letting people drown 5 steps from shore. He stared at her, then at Khaled. I hope you trust this consultant. Khaled's mouth tilted. She's not a consultant. She's a mirror. Evelyn's jaw set. We can't operate on vibe, she said. We have legal exposure from last quarter's hedges. Emma nodded. Then stop pretending, she said softly. File the correction. Transparency buys you cheaper crisis later. Silence. Heavy. Honest. The board chair tapped the table. File it. Evelyn inhaled sharply. Then she nodded, brittle, turning to business. I'll draft. Something unclenched in the room. Emma glanced at John, who was watching her with a kind of wary respect. He gave the smallest of nods. She returned it. Khalid looked out at the city. The morning felt different, like a wind had shifted that everyone pretended not to feel. He turned back. "Emma," he said, "when your 6 months are over, will you come back? As an employee? As a leader?" Emma smiled, tired and bright. "No, sir. I'll send you someone better. Someone who's been carrying trays and watching the world the way it really is." Robert, in the doorway, blinked fast. Khalid held her gaze. "Then at least keep the notebook." Emma closed her father's notebook carefully and slid it back into her bag. "It knows where it belongs," she said. Silence. Outside, the city roared, cars and prayers and markets rising. Inside, a pledge sat signed. A hospital would order machines. Workers would go home without fear. Systems would shift, slowly, stubbornly, but they would shift. And the billionaire who taunted a waitress learned the one lesson money almost never teaches. Power isn't proven by who kneels. It's proven by who stands up. And who you stand up for. Hook for the next episode. 6 weeks later, someone would try to bury the waste reports, and Emma would have to decide whether to keep her promise or burn the building down with truth. Your turn. If someone with power humiliated you in public, and you had one chance to flip the story, would you take their dare or write your own rules? What would you do with $190 million if it had to save jobs first?